Hey guys, I'm Trayvon Thomas, and I am a part of the Relationship Refinery. And today, I'm going to be talking about your relationship with the economy. Let's dive in. So, one of the first things I love to talk about when it comes to the economy is self-discovery. You ask me why? Well, it's because each individual inside of this economy is so important to the macro scale of economics. And you might be asking me, how so? Well, it's simple. In economics, we have this idea called comparative advantage. And without comparative advantage, our capitalism system doesn't work. What do you mean by that? Well, comparative advantage is this idea that whoever is best at something should be the one that does it. So if you produce 10 coins of value for shoes versus 3 coins of value for oranges, you should be the one producing shoes, right? And if somebody else produces, say, 10 coins of value in oranges and 3 coins of value in shoes, then they should produce the oranges and not vice versa. Because if you do it together, we have 20 units of value versus just the 6 if we did it separately. And that's the whole concept of comparative advantage, right? Which is why it's so important that people self-discover, right? Because if you don't have self-discovery, you have what you have today, which is a lot of people in places they really shouldn't be. And it's supposed to be our education system that helps us get exposed to the world and all the things that could be so that we can live this comparative advantage society. But unfortunately, with a lot of this or that, we don't have that. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work, and it doesn't mean the system isn't set up for it. And so now the question is, well, how do I self-discover? Well, 2 things that I think are important to help you self-discover. Self-discovery to me, especially in the terms of economics, is this interconnection between your skills and your passions, right? Skills and passions. And so how do I find my skills and passion? Well, first, let's start with skill. And so skill, you want to go back to your childhood and think deeply about your childhood. What games were you playing? What were you doing with your parents? What were you doing anytime you're doing something, right? And you not only want to look at what you're doing, you really want to look at what was your brain doing in these moments. So if you grew up playing Call of Duty, what were you doing during Call of Duty? Because everybody's brain is doing something different. Were you logging on because you like the chat rooms? Were you constantly looking at the graphics? Were you pumped up about the competition? Maybe it was the strategic thinking. Maybe it was the violence itself, right? But what was your brain doing in these moments that you really enjoy, that you find yourself doing? And what you want to do is take that moment and then also apply it to a different moment. Another example I love to give is when you're in trouble. When you're caught in a pickle, what is your brain doing to get out, right? Is it immediately going to somebody to ask for help? Is it immediately thinking about it, like thinking of a way out? Is it talking your way out, right? But whatever it could be, you want to see what your brain is doing. And you want to look through childhood and find these consistencies of what your brain is doing constantly over and over again. And then the last cherry on top is you want to ask people pretty much, when you come to me, what are you asking from me, right? The simple question of when people ask you for help, what are they asking for? And that's a huge exposure for probably what you're good at. And when you kind of synthesize that all together, what you end up having is a skill set, right? And that right there is what I call your gift. That's your gift. And when you have your gift, that is your skill that you're good at, that you can take into the economy. It's something you're good at. And so that's the first thing. Look through your past and try to find that gift, that skill, but really think about what your brain is doing during those time periods, not necessarily what everything else is doing, what you're playing games, stuff like that. Think about what your brain is doing. But then 2 is your passion. So passion is again, you want to look back at your childhood and you want to find what did you absolutely enjoy, right? And you want to find that thing you absolutely enjoyed that what a mentor of mine says gives you wings. What gives you wings as you go through life? And when you find that thing, right, you want to match it to something you do today that gives you wings. And you want to look for those consistencies over life to figure out, what is that thing that actually makes me feel good? What is that thing that constantly makes me feel happy, that I go to regardless? I know for me, it was always dancing and listening to music. And when I looked at it, it was always thinking about these good times in my head, right? It was fulfilling, right? What I was really doing was circulating emotions inside of my body. I love these emotions and I love to tell these stories, right? And through this or that, I learned I had a passion for speaking. I had a passion for people. I had a passion for getting information out there, right? But it was really finding out that it wasn't just me listening and dancing to music. It was what my brain was doing and what I was enjoying doing that dancing to music that made me find that passion. And that's what you have to do in order to find it. And once you find that, you can find that center point of where skills meets passion, right? And when you find that, you then find your golden ticket for participating in this economy. And so, well, Trey, what if I find out that, hey, I have a passion for being a teacher, right? Well, I'm good at teaching, I have a passion for being a teacher, but I still don't feel like I'm participating in this economy, right? I still don't feel like I'm getting the benefits or the fulfillment that I'm looking for inside the economy today. So I don't believe your concept. Well, a part of that's true, but a part of that can also be explained. So there's another part of the economics that you have to consider. Outside of skills and passion, you also have to find the interconnection between what's in demand and what people are willing to pay for, right? What's in demand and what people are willing to pay for. And so what's in demand today could be like a pair of Jordans, and what people are willing to pay for it could be $500, right? And so that could be something good to go into. But if people decide they only want to pay $100 for Jordans, right? And you buy a pair of Jordans for $200, then that may not be a profitable business for you. And that's something you have to think about as well when joining the economy. It's not only what you're good at and what you're passionate about, but what do people want and what are they willing to pay for, right? And when you find all of these synergies inside of the economy, then that's when you find your focal point. And that focal point is usually a very profitable focal point for anybody that participates. And that's how you get your unicorns, such as your Elon Musk or your Jeff Bezos, because they have this extreme passion for something. They love something. Their brain is doing something in these moments, and people love what they have and are willing to pay top dollar for it. And that's the center focus that you really want to have inside of this economy today. And that's really what the economy is all about. It's not necessarily about all of these big figures and numbers and institutions. It's really about getting you to go back down to the basics and getting to your comparative advantage, getting you to a point where you can see what are you good at better than the people around you? What do you enjoy more than the people around you? And what are the people around you willing to pay and want from you? All of those interconnecting is really how you build a good relationship with the economy. That's how you participate in these large booms, how you're able to invest, how things are able to multiply, and how you could be somebody of wealth and magnitude inside of a system that sometimes makes people feel low. And this is an important concept, and this is what I'll close with. The problem that we see today is not necessarily the problem of the hills and valleys of the economics itself. The problem we really have today is not enough people have figured out what their comparative advantage is, what they're good at and what they love to do. Call it education, call it I didn't have time, call it bad seasons. But if everyone doesn't do that, then we never have the economy that we're supposed to have. And we're always subpar to what could be. And only those that figure that out typically rise to the top. And that's supposed to be you. You can be somebody that rises to the top. In fact, it's important and necessary that you rise to the top, because we don't need your 3 oranges. We need your 10 pairs of shoes.